now we can start.
Okay, perfect. Here we go. Committee member Baranek.
Here.
Committee member Schmidt.
Here.
Committee member Vanden Eyck. Is Jeff there?
Yeah. He's
I
waving.
saw him earlier.
He's
Vice Chairperson Funk.
Here.
Chairperson Newsom.
Here.
All present.
All right. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
So move.
Second the motion, please.
Okay. Vice Chairperson Funk.
Yes.
Committee member Schmidt.
Yes.
Committee member Baranek.
Yes.
Committee member Vanden Eyck. Chairperson Newsom.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay. I think Jeff's screen's frozen, so we might see him pop back on in a minute.
I think he might not have audio. Maybe trying to fix that.
Okay. So at this time, I'll open it up to public comment, and that is for anything that's not listed on the agenda. Now's an opportunity for you to raise your hand. If you are on the webinar, just raise your hand. If you're on the phone, is it *67?
I believe it's *9.
*9. Give me another 4 years and I'll see if I can remember that. Okay, let me look at my participants. I don't see anybody with a raised hand. Do we have any callers that would like to speak for anything not on the agenda? Does not look like it. Okay, then I will close public comment and we'll go to consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent.
I'll second.
Okay. Committee member Schmidt.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Funk.
Yes.
Committee member Baranek.
Yes.
Committee member Vanden Eyck. Chairperson Newsom.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Okay. Now we'll go ahead and move on to the development project review. I think you're presenting Moran or Kelly.
It's actually Kelly.
All right.
Can you guys see the presentation mode or?
Yes.
You see these ones? Well, that's how it's going to be. So this is a project at 6855 Atascadero Avenue. It's a multifamily infill development project. The DRC did review this project at its second meeting at the end of July and did continue it for some additional information. So we are back again this afternoon with some modifications to the project. A little bit of an overview, it is in the multifamily 24 zoning district, so it does allow up to 24 dwelling units per acre. The site is a little bit less than a half an acre, which would mean that they have a minimum of 9 units that they need to provide and a maximum of 11 units that they can provide on the site. This is an image of the existing site. There is an existing single family house along Atascadero Avenue. You can see there's an existing multifamily development on Atascadero Avenue to the right of the existing house. And then this is a view, it's a corner property on the Navajoa side. And to the left of the single family house is a single family development that is in a multifamily zone as well. So the applicant is proposing to construct a new 2-story, 8-unit multifamily residence, which would bring the site unit total to 9, which is their minimum amount that they are able to provide. There are 6 720 square foot units and 2 625 square foot units. And then the existing house is a larger, I believe, 3-bedroom house. They do have the 12 on-site parking spaces, and they're actually have beefed that up to 14 after the last DRC hearing. And they are deed restricting 1 low-income affordable unit to comply with the state density bonus regulations. So again, under the state density bonus, the site allows for a maximum of 11 units. They would actually be able to build 12 units using the state density bonus. However, they are only requesting 9 units at this time. Per that state density bonus law, they are able to request a number of concessions and waivers. They are able to request up to 1 concession for their provision of affordable units. And then they are allowed to request any number of waivers of development standards that make it feasible for them to construct units under the city's density. So a little bit of background: at the July 28th meeting, the DRC did have a number of requests for some additional information. The DRC did request 4-sided architecture. They previously had some horizontal siding added to the front and one side of the building. They have wrapped that, and we will discuss that in a couple slides coming up, to all sides of the building. There was a request for some bollards between some of the parking spaces and the property to the north, because there was not a curb there and there were some safety concerns. That has been included in the revised plan. There's needed to be some clarification on unit bedroom count as well. There were some offices shown that were fairly closed off. The applicant has clarified that he is asking for full 2-bedroom units for each of the units. There was a request to add some high windows to the laundry rooms, which have been included in the revised plan. Again, there was eliminating the office in units 4 and 8 to move the laundry room over. The applicant has retained all of the units as 2-bedroom units, and so those footprint did remain as proposed previously. There was also a request for a greater setback along the south property line, which would be the side property. Per state law, the applicant is retaining his ability to request the waiver on the rear setback and maintaining the city's allowed 5-foot setback on the side of the property. There was also a request for some darker earth tone colors, and we do have some colored elevations for you today that show those revisions. And then a consistent window pattern. There were some grids and non-gridded windows, and the applicant has retained slider windows to meet egress standards and has taken the grids out so they are consistent on all elevations. And then there was a confirmation that there would be solid fencing around the site, and that is a condition of approval and shown as part of the plan package today. So these are the colored elevations of the units as they are revised today. So this top one sort of shows the elevation facing the parking lot area. You can see that there are bollards included in the parking stall design to eliminate any safety concerns towards that northern property. The trash enclosure has been located a little bit more central to the site in an accessible location to the trash company. And they have included a darker gray color palette consistent with DRC's request for darker earth tone color. This shows sort of the north-facing side and sort of the rear elevation along that side property line. You can see that they have also added some gable features to the back of the building and some different contrasting colors to provide some vertical elements to break up the facade along that property line. And then these are the added windows in the laundry area. So these are the unit layouts. They have been revised to include 2 bedrooms in each of the units. The state does have a parking maximum that cities can require as part of the state density bonus program. Sorry, that should say a maximum of 14 parking spaces can be required, and that is what they are providing. That does include the existing and the new unit in the parking calculation. So this is the site plan, which is roughly similar to the one that we saw previously. The trash enclosure has been confirmed to be located in this general location, and it does include a cover and an enclosure around those trash receptacles. It will be sized large enough to meet the new compostable requirement for food waste. You can see that PG&E or gas company easement here that is remaining clear of buildings and the common area locations in these areas here. There will also be some private open space for the existing residents along that rear of the residence and in that front yard area. They're also incorporating some pavers into the parking area to meet their drainage standard requirements. And they are maintaining that code required 5-foot setback from the side. And then this is the corner where they are requesting a waiver to encroach into the 10-foot required rear setback. They're also encroaching with their parking spaces into the Navajoa Avenue setback area. DRC did imply last time that we met that that would be acceptable in order to gain greater parking on the site. In terms of our objective standards for multifamily developments, we do have a storage requirement, and they have included storage in each of the units. They are also providing on-site laundry in those 2 separate laundry facility rooms, both one on the ground floor and one on the upper floor. They do meet our open space requirements as required by code, and they do also meet our lot coverage requirements. So in terms of concessions and waivers allowed by state law, they are requesting the concession in the form of the reduced rear setback at that pinch point from 10 feet to 5 feet. They're also requesting a waiver of the landscape setback standards between parking and property lines for the handicap accessible space. The rest of the spaces will be in compliance with our standard. And their revised projects also includes a waiver for the parking within the required street setback area to meet that state parking requirement. We have included a number of conditions on the project. That the parking spaces be reduced in length to meet our standard, some street trees as required by code along Atascadero Avenue and Navajoa Avenue, some shade trees adjacent to the parking areas so that we provide shade per code, some narrow shrubs or vines installed along that southern property line that do extend above the top of the fence for some layering against that long facade. Frontage improvements need to be installed per the municipal code. We do have that large existing oak tree along Navajoa Avenue. And so there may be some modifications to the frontage improvements if approved by the city engineer to maintain that tree. But in general, curb, gutter, and sidewalk is required. Solid fencing of the site, we want to ensure that that happens. We heard a couple safety concerns about fencing. And fencing will need to be high quality. We don't allow dog-eared fencing in our multifamily zones. And that landscaping be installed along Atascadero Avenue. Currently, there's a lot of lawn, and so we just want that refresh to be consistent with the rest of the development. So in terms of discussion items for today, we do have items related to our objective standards for site design, architectural design, and the landscape conditions. And that does conclude staff's presentation. We're available for questions, and I believe that the applicant and his designer is also available if needed.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, we got the first question. Dennis, do you have questions for the applicant or city?
Just comment.
Okay.
I was glad to hear about the oak tree on the Navajoa in that discussion. That was one of my questions. Was there any additional participation with the expanded notice by neighbors in anyone else respond to the project beyond what happened last time?
We have not had a direct response to the city. I do see some people, however, attending the meeting, and that could be from our additional noticing.
Okay.
Kelly, there was just one email that came in that I sent out yesterday. It's also posted on the city's website.
Is that the one from Anna Plotkin?
Yes.
That wasn't it the same as we had before?
No, I just got that one on Wednesday, August 24th. And that's the one I emailed out yesterday.
Okay.
That's the only comment we received on the public comments box.
Well, and the applicant agree with the conditions that have been placed on the project?
Yes.
Okay. I'm happy that the applicant has responded to our comments, and I very much like the changes that have been made. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Sorry, I'm trying to pull up my Hollywood Squares again. Jeff, did you have any questions? I know.
No.
Okay. Hold on, I'm moving you. Emily, any questions for staff or applicant?
None, thank you.
Okay. Susan, any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on a couple of things that were in the email that we all received from a neighbor. The first question is, where will the air conditioning infrastructure be located? Will there be interior or exterior to the building, and if exterior, where?
Sure. So the applicant's designer is on the call, and they would probably be best able to answer that.
Okay. The There was a question in the letter with regard to fire safety. And so I wanted to know, does it make a difference in terms of fire safety in the neighborhood to have this 2-story wooden structure be have a setback of 5 feet versus 10 feet to neighboring properties?
No, so our current municipal code allows buildings up to 30 or 35 feet in the multifamily zone, and we do allow them at that 5-foot setback mark. Our current emergency services equipment can service buildings of this height.
Okay, and the setback does not make a difference in terms of the fire risk?
Correct. We get into some additional building code standards when you're closer than 5 feet to a property line, which is still allowed, but you can't have operable windows and things like that. Because these are residential and they need to have those operable windows for egress, the 5-foot setback allows them to do so.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And there were also questions with regard to the impact on a substantial existing tree that is on the neighbor's property on the southern side, but that could be affected by the construction. Has there been discussion with the applicant about that tree, and is the applicant willing to have the whatever has to be trimming done on that tree done by an arborist to maximize the likelihood of retaining that, keeping a healthy tree there?
Yeah, that's a good question for the applicant. If it's not a native tree, it's not covered under any city codes, but obviously there's a civil component when development happens and there's an existing mature tree that might be damaged by that. So, he would be best to ask him what he plans to do for that. Okay.
And then to clarify what's within our range of things, I'm seeing that that one of the requests from neighbors on both sides was to have a little more setback. And it looks like that this is not something that could be accommodated and still preserve the number of units that the applicant wishes to build on the site. Is that basically correct? We looked at, can you have differences in the parking and a shorter parking space close up and move the building, that kind of thing. Is there any latitude for adjustments in that? I know, recognizing that our ability to require that is probably constrained by law.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. We're under the Housing Accountability Act, which is, of course, a state law written by people that don't always implement housing. And I don't know that there's been a lot of case law related to it yet in terms of, the exact specifics of what cities can and can't do. We are working on objective design standards that will hopefully allow us some additional control over what we have today. It's our understanding that, we kind of have to provide waivers of standards that would impact the applicant's ability to achieve density on the site that they're requesting, as long as it's within our city density. And this is the setback that they're requesting the exception of is this pinch point right here from 10 feet to 5 feet. This side property line here does meet our code standard. And so there's not really an ability for us to require increasing that setback above our code requirements. Of course, this is the laundry facility here. So we could say at this pinch point, that we, wanted some additional setback there, and they could reduce or eliminate the laundry facilities and still retain the same residential density on site. But then they would also then be requesting a waiver to not provide on-site laundry facilities for the residences, which typically is a benefit. It's not a long portion of the building that's requesting that setback. It is a small corner, but there could be some discussion about that.
Would there be an option to, if the parking space that is closest to the new building were to be designated a compact space, as you see elsewhere, to create more, that creates more distance to the existing residents by making that a compact space? If you did the same thing on the space that is nearest to the new building, would there be opportunity for a small shift? It probably, wouldn't be 5 feet, but to have a side, a foot or two away from the southern property line. And maybe, you might have to shift it, a foot closer to the existing residence to create enough space at that pinch point for people to come and go. Is there an option to do that?
There's an option to request it, but probably not require it because it would be making our setback greater. The applicant's designers on the line, there's a lot of factors when you're on a triangular shaped parcel. If you move this forward, then you create less than 5 feet here, which would not be allowed by building code. So then you'd be moving it closer to the existing residence. And at some point, if there's operable windows along that facade for any bedroom spaces, then they have a certain limitation on how close they can get to that existing residential building. So
I think what Susan was thinking was if
exercise.
it was pivoted at an angle and you don't change that setback on the north side, but you change the setback.
Yeah,
on
so we'd
that
be
side.
creating a different pinch point here, which might be okay for building code or might not be. And I don't know that.
What's that distance there now on that one?
A little over 8 feet, maybe.
So that minimum is going to be 6 for separation of buildings. So you've got a couple of feet to play with. It looks like, but you don't have anything to play with on that northern property line. But if the building was just cocked at an angle 2 feet or 3 feet.
And it also depends. They can encroach into the gas easement. So if pivoting it meant this corner moved this way a little bit, then they would have to shift the whole building at that point.
Well, actually, it would shift a
Yeah. I actually wasn't thinking of pivoting. I was thinking of keeping it same thing, but to move it, say, a foot or two away from the southern property line, and then simultaneously move it a foot or two to the left. So you're so that it's slightly closer to the existing residence and slightly closer to and it's slightly further away from the southern property line, so that we maintain flow through the property at the laundry room pinch point.
Yeah. Okay. Let's ask the applicant team on that question to see if there's things that don't make that feasible.
Okay. Fair enough. That's the end of my questions.
And at this time, we'll go ahead and open it up to the applicant. Go ahead and do a presentation or address questions at this time, and then I'll open it up to public comment shortly after that.
Hey, this is Preston. I'm the designer, and then the actual applicant, Mike Hawkins, is here. And so Kelly did a really good job about presenting the changes that we made to the project. So glad to hear you like some of those changes. And then did some of the main points with where the structure is positioned. It is a triangular lot, so it's pretty difficult to fit the number of units given the shape of the lot and meet all these setbacks. So any of those options with sliding it forward, then you're fighting the setback at the top. If you try to rotate it, you fight the setback at the top. If you slide it down, you're going to have a smaller, basically setback between the structures. When the eaves and everything, it's going to get pretty tight. So I would say the position that we have it here is probably the best suitable for this structure on this site. And then I'm open for any other questions you guys have. And then if Mike's here too, if you want to say anything, Mike.
I'm right here. Thank you, Preston. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Hawkins. I'm the applicant. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Madam Chair, did you want to put the questions that we raised, or do you want me to raise those again directly to the?
No, I think Preston is the engineer. I'm the one who sat down with Preston and designed the building. We're really impressed with how beautiful we think this building is. Just beautiful, and the changes we've made, I think, did nothing but improve it. So I appreciate you guys bringing that to our point. We've played with this on this lot. We've messed with it 100 different ways. We were going to put the building on the other line, on the other property side. We have done everything we can, and this is by far, and believe me, we have spent hours positioning this building, and this is absolutely the best way this works. Absolutely. And as far as the tree goes, I want to address that. I absolutely love trees. I will do anything I can to save a tree, and I work with Witt's Turn and Henry. does all of my tree work and removal and pruning. And so they will definitely come over and we will do everything we can to save any tree on any piece of property.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. Can you speak to where the AC units will be positioned?
Yeah, there's a couple spots we could put them, like I'm reading the email on the city website. So the south property line would be ideal, and they're most likely they'll be ductless mini splits. So the requirement for that and Kelly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is usually it has to be 3 feet off the property line and it has to be a 50 decibel rating or less. So that's something that we'll take into consideration.
And
Dennis has a question.
just for general reference, can you give us an example of a 50 decibel sound?
That's usually like a quiet conversation. So there's like even between dwelling units. So like when you have like if you go to a hotel or you are in an apartment, between each of the units is you have to have a sound rating of like 50 is what the rating is. So if you've ever been in a hotel, like sometimes you can hear people through the walls like barely, and that's what that minimum requirement usually is. And then I'm not sure if Kelly, if you guys have a standard that's more strict than that.
Yeah, we don't have a standard more strict. Our municipal code is fairly silent as it relates to the placement of equipment and things like that. We do have some noise standard ratings that are in line with that 50 decibel sound. I think that might even relate more to evening hours. The building code has a couple setback requirements, and I think that's what Preston was referring to with the 3 feet.
Yeah, and then in the new mini splits that we're going to be using, I mean, everything's pretty dang quiet, so I don't see any issue with it.
Okay. Dennis, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm just kind of going back to the air conditioning units. So what type of air conditioning units are you proposing?
Proposing ductless mini splits, so it'll be heating and air. And so they basically have outdoor condensing units, and then they have supply and return and condensate lines that go to each room.
So we're not talking about swamp coolers. We're not talking about window air conditioners.
No, of course not. No.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
These are very clean, very small, and very quiet.
Yes.
Susan, did you have any more questions for the applicant?
No, that completes my questions. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any. Go through my Hollywood squares. All right, so I'll go ahead and open it up to the public for public comment at this time. Do you have anybody wanting to speak? Let's see. Looks like we have a caller. How do you unmute it again, Maria? Star
6. So the number ending in 9606 should be able to unmute themselves.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Okay. My name is Anna Plotkin, and I have sent you my email. And a person, Tristan Nielsen, that lives also on the same property, she also sent you an email, but she received a message that her email was blocked, and she had done it twice, yesterday in the morning and today in the morning. I have a concern about this corner that between the northern corner of the building and the whole big corner that we have, the triangle. I have a concern that there should be a gate that only people who live there should have the key, because if anybody starts going there behind the corner, we can expect all kind of possibly very unpleasant things. So does the applicant has thought about it, and I would like his comment on it.
Okay. Do you have any more questions? And then I can ask them of the applicant and he can address them all.
Okay, and I also did not understand, even though I was listening very carefully, I didn't understand where the air conditioner is going to go. All I could catch is that it would be the best to put them on the southern end of the or southern end of the property. That's in between the building and our property, which is 5 feet, and there is going to be air conditioners in there. Is that what you're saying? They're going to be on the ground.
I'll have them clarify where the units will go on the map here in a minute. Are you just by phone, or do you have access to see the images?
I am looking at your at the screen, but I don't have a microphone. That's why I'm on the phone.
Okay, so when I have the applicant address it, I'll have them show it on the screen of the locations of anticipated AC units. Oh,
Right.
Kelly's doing it for us.
Mm-hmm.
Any
Yeah,
additional
that's
questions?
Kelly, isn't there a restriction to be less than 5 feet from the line for a mechanical unit?
I don't believe we have anything in our municipal code about placement of equipment, just sound requirements, but I can look that up right now real quick.
Okay, yeah, double check. I'm just dreaming. I thought for some reason there's a 5 foot setback for everything, but I could be wrong.
Okay, and then I believe the applicant has spoken before about the fencing, and I do not believe there's a gate access, so I will have the applicant clarify that in a minute. I understand it's going to be fenced, but it was something else that we had brought up for access. Any other questions
Okay.
you'd like us to ask?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I placed a phone call. I placed a phone call with the fire department to ask about our tree, what's going to happen to it, and how close it is to the upper part of the building, which is made out of wood. And today in the morning, she called me back, and I asked about our tree, and she said to me, her name was Kelly, and she said to me that they are in contact with you, and they're talking about the tree, and they haven't made a decision yet. And when they will make a decision, in order for us to find out, we have to call to the planning commission. And so I would like to know if your planning commission is in contact with the fire department or not. Because I feel that I'm being sent around on a wild goose chase, that each of you are pointing the finger at somebody else, and I don't have a straight answer about the tree.
A lot of our projects go on to the next step is the planning commission, so that's standard process. In this case, I do not believe it goes on to planning commission. Is that correct, Phil? This is the final hearing. Sorry, you're muted.
Yeah, that's correct. This will be the final sort of public notification and hearing. It is a ministerial project because it's less than 12 units.
Yes, my mute button was buried deep. I was looking through the code on setbacks, so sorry about that. But yeah, no more hearings. This is it.
Okay, so we can talk about the tree as well. Anything else for you?
So, so if there is no more hearings, in that case, how are we going to talk to the planning commission about the tree? And how are we going to find out what was the decision and what was the conversation between fire department and you?
We'll have that conversation in just a minute. You do have a couple people that are from the planning commission present on this committee. I think what had happened is Kelly thought that this project was moving on to planning commission. And so what happens is design review committee is usually the first step, then it goes planning, and then it goes city council. With the exception of by right and certain projects like this one, ministerial, then it's only going to be heard from design review committee. So once I get all your questions, then we'll talk to the applicant about that and see if there was a decision made on the tree, or perhaps it's just something that the city staff needs to look a little bit further into, and we can get you that information as well. I'm just trying to get all your questions addressed and written down too.
Okay. And another thing is that I'm not sure because I am looking at your plan, and one of the parking spaces is shorter. So the only thing is to make a shorter parking space on the right side of these parking spaces, and this way you can move forward the building. So I don't understand why this shorter parking space has to be on the left side of those 4 parking spaces. I'm not sure that, do you know what I'm talking about if you're looking at this picture? So that was my last question. Why can't it become shorter the right side, the corner parking space? Can it become shorter? This way you will have a space to move.
Okay, so I have all your questions. You can stay here. I'll look to the public to see if there's anybody else to ask questions, and then I'll have the applicant address all of those, okay?
Okay, then I don't have no more questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have anybody else that's on the webinar or on the phone that would like to ask questions of the applicant? And then I can bring the applicant back to address them as well as city staff. No, I don't see anybody raising their hand, and I don't see anybody on the phone. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to have the applicant come back on and answer some of the questions. I'm not sure if you wrote them down, but I'm happy to go over those questions for you, Mike or Preston, whichever one. And you're not on my screen, so I'm going to move it so I can see you. Okay, Preston, and
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
there you are. Okay, great.
So I guess a clarification on where the gate is to be requested. I mean, because common area 1, there's really no fence around, and then common area 2 has a couple of fences. So I mean, it's just like even a standard single family residence property. Not everyone has their backyard like fenced in. So someone could obviously walk around this whole thing, just like someone could walk through the parking lot to common area 1. So I'm not really sure how or why that would make a difference in putting a gate over on either side. I guess that was the question or request.
I think she was talking about where the dimension is, you know, that
The corner.
at that point right there by.
Because it accesses that other public property on the other side on Morrow Road. And I think people are trying to make sure that this stays completely somewhat fenced, or, you know, it's not a free access where people are just coming and going into those back areas down the sides of it.
Got it. Okay. Well, it'll be fenced on that north and south property line to the corner. So I'm really the only access to get there would be walking through the parking lot or walking along the whole side of that building. So, I mean, Mike, do you have anything to say on that?
Can they get out the back corner at any point?
Can they get through the back corner?
Yeah.
No, because that's a continuous fence along the north, and then it ties into that right corner and comes all the way back to Atascadero Avenue. So it's completely fenced.
Kelly, can you show us on the site plan? I don't know if you can use your mouse or something to kind of highlight. I see the dark bold line. To me, I think that's fencing. Just, yeah. Okay. So that's all fenced in there. One continuous fence.
Yep, correct. There's no access to any of the other properties besides Navajo and Atascadero. It's just all open there.
I believe Anna was just talking about putting a gate at that one point to try to prevent people coming from offsite and hanging out in that triangle. She wasn't talking, it would be a gated area for the community to use, but non-community members walking in and hanging out in that area. And that's what the gate would be for.
Okay. Mike, do you have anything to say on that?
Mike, I think you're still muted.
It might be muted, yeah.
You just have to unmute yourself at the bottom there.
Bottom left.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, I get that concern because I see all the homeless and I see all the bicycle rims and everything going on coming out of Caltrans. And I'm going to have an on-site property manager, and I can guarantee you there will be nobody hanging out back in that corner. So if a gate is going to make everyone feel better, I don't have a problem with that. I think it's unnecessary. I think a gate closes it so people can go back there and close the gate and actually do worse things than if there was no gate there. So I definitely do not want a gate because we patrol that and there will be nobody back there.
Okay, thank you. Can you talk to the location of where the AC units are going, Preston?
Yeah, I was thinking of let me try to pull up Google Earth. Basically try to position them the farthest away from the two structures on the south, which aren't shown on the plan because we didn't topo that area. But basically it would be the southernmost point of the structure, kind of down where it says existing shed to be removed. So they'd be positioned basically closer to the neighboring property's driveway and wouldn't be near either of the structures.
Kelly, can you show us on the map?
Sorry, what did we want to look for?
Just click like where it says existing shed to be removed, kind of towards the south part of the structure.
So that's in between the building and the property
here.
line and the 5-foot setback zone.
So
So one thing we're debating with the staff as to what our code allows in the setback zone, and our code isn't 100% clear. Our code does say that uncovered decks and porches are allowed in setbacks and that the edges of chimneys, but it doesn't clarify whether an AC unit's allowed in the code or not. Now, I think our team is telling me that they've gone either way on those being in the setback, but I will say also default that the DRC, that is an item you do have discretion on to locate those where appropriate on the site, given the design of the project, as long as it doesn't infringe on those items that we mentioned about the Housing Acts. And that's something that it'd be hard to argue that it would. So from a design perspective, that's something that is up to the discretion of DRC at this point.
I'll add something to that. So usually like you're allowed to project into the setback, like especially with like the eaves, right? We're gonna have 2-foot eaves, and these ductless mini split condensers can either be hung to the face of the structure, which I wouldn't suggest, or they can be ground mounted. So the whole idea was that these are ground mounted in a line next to each other, and then they're only about 7 inches wide, and you put them on a little pad. So they're really still going to be under the eave, and there's still going to be the 3-foot like walking distance around them for any kind of maintenance or fixes.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, and then can we address the tree on the property, Preston? Conversation on that.
Yeah, I'll let Mike can probably handle this one a little better, but you like on projects I've done like this, usually it's a discussion between both property owners, and I think Mike would be more than happy we're going to have to do some sort of pruning to get this structure built because it looks like quite a bit of the limbs are hanging over. But Mike, do you have anything to say on that?
No, obviously we're going to have to prune it back in order to build the structure. And so for the neighbor, it's usually their responsibility to prune their tree when it's coming over on someone else's property, because if a limb falls and breaks something, that property owner is responsible. And I'm telling her now that I will take responsibility for pruning that tree and making it nice. And I will do what Whit says is the best thing to do, because I'm not an arborist, but I do trust Whit's turn. So I'll have them come out and look at that tree, and I'm sure we'll make the right decision.
So you'll work with the property owner on that directly.
And Whit's turn.
Okay. And then the parking, the left side versus the right side, why was there a shorter parking space?
We got to have clearances to bring in like utilities, especially like we don't want to be pouring driveways over them. So if you see like right here, we're trying to keep a clear path to get utilities between all this to the structure. And even if we were to make that closest one to the structure compact, it's the same issue as like we can't slide the structure any far forward or down or rotate it or anything. Otherwise, we're going to have to reduce units or make them smaller, and it's just going to, it's going to reduce the density.
Okay. All right. That is all my questions on my list. It looks like Susan has a question. And
Yeah, I want to follow up on the comments from staff with regard to DRC having some was wondering where the location of the AC units. So I wanted to find out, is it feasible to have the AC units, since they are small, be aligned along the short face of the building that is between the new building and the existing residence, as opposed to in that narrow passageway that's between the in the setback
I mean, it's a possibility for sure, but I mean, if we put them where I'm assuming, or I would propose them where it says existing shed to be removed, it's really easy to put a gate right there, and now they're hidden from everyone. The neighbors can't see them, these residents can't see them, the existing single family residents can't see it. Whereas if we put them on a line along that building, there is going to be some people that walk on that path, so then you're having to look at them right there. So I think putting them on this south side is the best option, but I mean, that is an option if you guys would like them there.
Would it be possible, Kelly, for us to look at a site plan that's large enough to include where the neighboring structures are located, so that we can see what this proposal is in terms of of where you're locating the potentially noisier element relative to.
Let me see if I can bring up,
neighborhoods.
I think in the previous presentation, we might have had an overlay of the
Right,
development.
if you
Right
look at
there.
your second slide right there, you can
driveway.
point it out.
Yeah, this one doesn't necessarily have the overlay, but there's the existing shed.
So it'd be right
there's-
in that zone.
But I think that the lower photograph below that, that's on the ground, shows the garages right where this is going to be located. Not the,
The garages of this development.
yes.
Yes, these are garages facing here and then
So that's
garages.
where
Okay.
he's putting the air conditioning in that location to, and not on the other corner. So it's more distant from the living area.
Yeah, I assume that they do
Correct.
have some sort of, entry or something. I'm not sure where it is, if it's back here, but these are garages in this location here.
Yeah. Okay. That works to keep it away from living areas as much as possible.
Dennis, did you have a question for the applicant?
No, it's just trying to explain.
Thank you. All right, let me look through my list. All right, it looks like we have the caller that has a question again. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up to 9606 number. I think it's *9 to unmute. And then you can ask your question again.
I believe it's actually *6 to unmute.
Yeah, I told you guys, I'm just not gonna get this. You literally are gonna have to put that in the, actually, it's probably
Okay.
in, there you go.
I just unmuted it. So here's my husband is asking a question that the city recommends a distance between a house and a tree, 10 feet. So how do you address this in order to be fire safe?
Phil, you want to take that, or Kelly?
Yeah, the city itself does not have any required setbacks between landscaping and houses. Our fire department does have a defensible space program that they like to put out there, especially for people in higher fire severity zones, people on our west side up in the hills. I don't know the particulars of that. I know that the focus of that is usually on brush and things that along the ground level, and trees are not always included in there. From a practicality standpoint, it's better to have trees a little bit away from your structures just for root intrusion and things like that. But a lot of trees behave differently with their root structures, and we don't have any specific code requirements that they maintain a distance from trees or any landscape material to a structure.
You want to say something? Oh, yes, just a second. No, just a second. My husband is speaking.
Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
sir, go ahead. You had a question for the DRC?
I had a question. The city does have a printout showing that they recommend 10 feet between a house and a tree. Also, the state has the same printout. So you're cutting that in half, and the fire hazard from the house to the tree or the tree to the house becomes extreme then. How are you going to get around that?
I think Kelly was speaking that it's not at a city level. I'm not sure what document you're referencing that's showing that, but again,
Well, we sent up, our note we sent yesterday had a picture of it, of that piece we took off the city's website showing a tree. Recommended distance is 10 feet, or I think it's 8 feet.
I think that has to do with the fire defensible zone setback, not a city code.
It's not a code, it's recommended by both the state and the city, though.
Phil, you want to take that?
I could see you fudging a little bit.
Yeah, so I believe our fire department has a number of sort of recommendations, especially for people in our high fire zone. I don't believe that this is in our high fire zone, and within our the high and very high fire severity zones. We like everybody to approach their developments in their housing, especially when there is fire concern and fire risk, with some common sense, and that is generally, keeping brush that catches on fire easily, trees that catch on fire easily, away from structures. We also do see sometimes foundation issues when, oak trees and things like that are planted too close to foundations. Again, we don't have a requirement. This zone is not in one of our wildland fire areas. This is a fairly developed area of the city. And the tree is not, an oak tree that gets, 80 feet tall and has branch structures that overlap roofs and things like that are definitely more of a concern than sort of a smaller patio shade tree.
But at the end of the day, we do make these suggestions to all development. In this particular case, though, it is not a code mandate, and the developer is allowed to build closer to that tree. It's a non-native tree. And the type of construction that we have now, based on the building code, is essentially fireproof. But yeah, whenever you build closer to anything that is combustible, whether that's another structure, another unit, which that setback requirement is only 6 foot, or whether it's a tree, there is increased hazards. That's all there is to it. So we'll definitely note that, and the developer can choose to work with that tree and trim that tree up as much as they want to on their side of the property. Is it a cypress? Is that what I'm looking at there? A cypress type tree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
London Plain.
London
Plain. That's the name of
London
it.
Plain sycamore?
Oh,
Yeah.
It's the cypress that you're looking at on the picture is here, and then this is the smaller tree here.
Oh, so it's a London Plain. Oh, that's good.
It
I was going to
didn't-
say the cypress are really, really flammable and they burn really hot. London Plain don't. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, we sent in some, oh, you can't hear. We sent in some pictures of that tree also yesterday. And so you can really see it from a couple of different angles. It's a pretty big tree.
That's a nice
And,
one.
yeah, it is a nice one, and I don't want to lose it. But if that somebody in one of those units tosses a cigarette out the window or something, or lights a barbecue back there and catches that tree on fire, then our property is going up in flames.
Those things don't burn too well, and they're very, very resilient. You can actually take that thing and chop it down right at the ground, and the thing will come right back. It's pretty amazing. So I think it's going to be just fine.
Yeah. Well.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm gonna continue with public comment because I had a few last minute people look like they popped up, and then I'm gonna bring it back to DRC for deliberation and comments. Looks like the next person is Devin.
Yeah, good afternoon. I just want to make a couple quick comments. First comment, I'm a professional firefighter, and that London sycamore poses very minimal risk for ignition source and also to carry fire from the lateral to a vertical component of that. A cigarette will not light that. It might light the mulch on fire, and then from there, the fire department can extinguish the fire. If anything, I'd be more concerned of the wood siding fence catching on fire instead of the tree. My second comment is just for the development itself. It's a really small lot, and to play with all the triangles and all the setbacks that are required is really difficult for the developer to find something that actually fits. In my personal opinion, it looks like this development fits to the lot size, maintain all the requirements that the state and the city require. Thank you for your time, and that's all the comments I had.
Thank you, Devin. All right, I'll go ahead and close up public comment and bring it back to DRC for comments, questions, and deliberation. Dennis, you were so patient.
Can we go back to the Google aerial that we had before, please?
That one.
You know, and just commenting on relationship of trees to buildings, it's almost, except for those along Morrill Road, almost every tree is in violation of the recommendation by the state and the city if the drawing that was being discussed is valid. And I just want to note it is a recommendation that's being made and not a codice of what was being explained. As I said before, I appreciate the applicants addressing our issues that we brought up before, and also that of the neighbors. And I am in support of moving the project along, please.
Okay, Susan, you had questions, comments?
Yeah, one question, just to confirm that there's no on the side facing the southern side of the new structure, there won't be balconies or on that structure. Right. Okay. So you can't have somebody isn't going to be out. The scenario of somebody running a barbecue right underneath that tree is not a realistic one.
Yeah, there are no balconies proposed, and they would have to have a greater setback even for a balcony scenario. So this is the extent of their construction along that facade.
Okay. I really appreciate the applicant addressing the concerns that the DRC raised before and giving as much consideration as can be to respecting the neighbors. I would like us to see a specific requirement with regard to placement of the AC units, that they be in the at the end of the property as described by the applicant's representative, to be in the section. I don't know how you describe that, but that section of the setback where where the space that is occupied by the existing shed. So and with that, I think that we really don't have leverage to require anything else under state law, and I appreciate the applicant working to try to make this as constructive as a neighborhood as it can be, given the challenges of the site and the limitations under state law. So I have no reason to object to it at this point, and would see it go forward.
Thank you, Susan. Emily.
I concur with the other committee members who've spoken so far. I think that the project does, I appreciate the applicant and the designer taking into consideration and incorporating all of our recommendations since last round. I understand the neighboring concerns, but I do think this is probably the best project that we're going to get for a site shaped as this one is shaped, and hope that the applicant will continue to move forward and making the same amount of effort to work with the neighbors as it seems he has so far. So I'm happy with the changes and looking forward to seeing this moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Jeff?
Yeah, I'll just echo what has also been said. I think that the project overall is well suited for this site. It's very tight, and they're getting a lot out of it. And I think that's good for our community and producing housing in our area. So I'm supportive of all the changes and the recommendations that have been made.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Can we get a motion, please, so we can get that in the record?
Sure, I'll make the motion. Make a motion that we approve this project as updated by applicant with the one notation by Susan about working with the AC to stay in the vicinity is further away from the adjoining properties, and go with that.
Yeah,
I'll second that.
specifically, yeah, specifically the adjoining residences.
All right, adjoining residents.
Yeah, thank you.
Or habitable space, we might specify.
We're gonna have many definitions for it. I hope city staff can decipher our intent.
Okay, ready for a roll call?
Yes.
Okay, Chairperson Newsom,
Yes.
Committee Member Vanden Eyck,
Yes.
Committee Member Baranek,
Yes.
Committee Member Schmidt,
Yes.
and Vice Chairperson Funk.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
We appreciate the applicant coming and doing his presentation and working with us to make sure that we were working with our neighbors, and look forward to seeing it happen. Thank you. All right, back to my list of procedures. At this time, we're going to go ahead and go on to the committee member comments and reports. Looks like Dennis.
Yes, to the director, please. Been getting a lot of calls and comments from people who live near the old Tuscarora Christian home. And there was a colony house that was on the property that apparently has been torn down. Do we have anything knowledge about what is happening with the Tuscarora Christian home property?
We know it is under new ownership, and they are speaking with us about doing some changes to their property. I was not aware of any demolitions out there. I can check with my building and development team to see if something was permitted out there. I am aware of the colony home that was there. I was not aware that was demolished, because that would have come across our desk for review of historic resources, and that was a designated colony home, which is a protected historic resource. So your comment concerns me. Are you sure it was demolished? Because I know
I saw pictures of it yesterday.
It's been vacant for a long period of time. So
There was demolition on the property yesterday.
The Tuscarora Christian home used it for offices.
Yeah.
They had talked about demolishing it at one time to extend some of their assisted care services to the property. I do know that the Christian home had prepared a cultural resources report for that site to know what was there. Obviously, there was a discussion about colony home, but I think there was also a discussion about indigenous resources in that area too. So anyway.
I'm not sure which structure was knocked down. I know that there was a lot of concern that it was a sudden for the neighbors and those around it. I was trying to see if I could pull up what was knocked down, but I'm not able to do that at this time. I don't know if anybody else is driven by it to know which building was removed.
I haven't driven by it, but of the pictures I saw, it looked like that home.
I will be driving by today. So I'm also checking with my building team right now as we speak. So to find out what's happening over there.
They would have needed a demo permit, correct?
They would have needed a demolition permit at a minimum. And if it's a structure that we have designated as being a protected structure, then we would also request a historic resources report and a photo documentation of that structure prior to demolition. And in order to demolish it, we would have to demonstrate that the structure is not salvageable, not repairable, and that any parts on the structure are recycled and utilized for other projects in our community.
When they talked to me about it, this is probably 4 years ago, I talked to Jim Wilkins about it, and he was interested in it, not necessarily to move it, but to see if there was things that he could scab off of it and use for his project. So I know he was interested in for that reason. Again, I grew up in the Tuscarora Facebook page is where I saw the pictures, and I believe they were talking about the old home. And even if they demoed a newer building, they would still have to have a demo permit. At least in my view.
While we're looking at permits and talking about things going on in town, there was some conversations about early site work on El Camino and Del Rio, 4 o'clock in the morning, pictures of all of the equipment. So while you're talking, you might want to look that up a little bit too, if you didn't already know about it.
So if you
Sorry,
look
yeah,
at
I'm
the-
looking at things as we speak. I'm talking with my team. It looks like there was some kind of a demolition permit issued out there. I just got some correspondence back from my team, so I need to investigate.
Okay.
And was it that building?
I don't know yet.
Okay,
I don't know yet. As soon as this meeting's over, I will find out.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Any more committee members and reports? Emily.
I have a positive comment. I run with a lot of school-aged kids' parents, and there's a lot of very happy chatter about the Tom Jess building on Traffic Way. People really like it. People really like the mural. So much so that people have noticed that one of the duplexes down the street on Traffic Way is also getting a facelift and has a similar mural. And I think in the last 3 weeks, I've probably heard from 4 people about how much they like that building, and they feel like that whole stretch is just looking so much better. So
That's great. Thanks so much for sharing that. We never get that side of it. We always get the other side of it.
I
About
know.
the negativity and how mad somebody is about a mural and how upset they are about design. And I, we have all sides, but we always hear one side. And so thanks for sharing that.
a lot of the Fine Arts Academy parents really like the mural, and the kids too. So yeah.
On another positive note, I heard a rave review about Kelly's presentation to the Board of Realtors, and her very quick, I think 10 minutes, was impressed on what she was able to bring to that meeting. And
That might have been Lorelei then.
No, I don't know.
Just take the
I heard
credit
rave
for it and
reviews
run,
about
Kelly.
I mean, I also did want to bring up though that we kicked off our general plan update process. So we did that over the weekend during cruise night and dancing in the streets.
Good.
Happened in place. Everybody was happy with cruise night.
Are people able to make comments on or make suggestions for the general plan in terms of land use changes?
No, we want to keep that a closed loop.
Yes, they are. Philip John. Yes, they can. Our website is up and running. We do have a question comment thing that they can submit. I'm not sure it's sophisticated enough yet for it to just be general comments and land use.
From my director's report.
Well, you started off on the wrong foot a little bit.
I'm trying to get everyone to listen. That's why.
So this is
right. I mean, it was.
what
You
you're
got
referring
censored in his
to,
meeting.
Kelly, is specifically
Wait, why can't that?
something
oh, there
for
it
the
goes,
general
right
plan.
there.
Yes, so Phil might want to say something more. Our website is up and running. I don't know that it's available yet for general comment about land use. We likely do have an email address on that website. And so any comments that can't be submitted within the forms that we currently have on there can be emailed to us. We will be taking all comments in. And there are a couple quick question survey kind of things up there on that front page right now. We just kicked it off. And so over the next few months, we'll be ramping up comments, workshops, and we want everybody's input on everything possible.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly.
We don't have Phil's input in director's report section.
Since he already started the discussion, I just want to let you guys know that this past weekend, we did our first general plan outreach event, our soft opening. We had a booth out at the Mid-State Cruisers Car Show all day out there. And then we moved it out here to the front of City Hall for the Dancing in the Streets event. And we were just getting the word out. We were giving out fortune cookies with our special messages in it. And we were giving out these coasters that I just tried to show you with our logo on it, which on the back, if you haven't seen one, these will be floating around town. We're giving thousands of those out so that people get the link to our website to know what's going on. But right now we're not doing analysis, research, or posing questions about land use. We're basically saying this process is starting. Here's where you're going to go to get info. But pretty soon we're going to be starting a lot of these things and doing a lot more of this outreach. But just the beginning now, and more to come at future city events and even future just locations throughout the city where we'll be doing some outreach and talking with the communities and finding out what it is people love about Atascadero and finding out what everyone's big idea is about Atascadero is where we're beginning. So we're excited to announce that this is finally started, and it's going to be a very open, very collaborative process.
Well,
but as always, it's going to focus on land use and circulation, but it'll also be about just our way of life. You know?
I posted the link onto a group in Atascadero, and there were some positive comments, but then there was the typical comments that you don't like to hear, which is it doesn't matter, they don't listen to us anyway type things. They do what they want to do. It's already predetermined what's going to happen. And so we can dispel that by being open and vet everything we can with people, all of us, because we're all part of it. Was there a good response at your soft opening? People asking questions and
a few, yeah. I mean, not as good as I would like to see. I want to see people get vibrant and come in droves and be excited about it. But when you're going to a special event like some of these events that we go to, people are interested in what they're doing at the event, and they don't want to. I mean, we're really about, we feel like it's almost like, okay, someone has to come and go to work when they talk to us, but we got people talking about their individual issues, and we got some people interested. We gave out a lot of our information, so I think that it will generate discussion over time, and at least we're planting the seed to say, hey, this is coming your way. Let's start to get the word out that this is something that's going to be happening in your community that you can really play a part in. And so right now we don't expect, when we start actually doing things and start actually getting people's feedback on specific topics, we expect we'll get a lot more input.
Next car show, bring your VW and put the display inside of your VW, and then everyone will come and look at your car.
That's the trick. That's the trick to do that. Yeah, I have an old van that I'm going to get on the road here soon, and so maybe for one of our next premieres, I'll have the old van ready, and so we'll see.
We did take it one more step, Dennis, on outreaches, as we're taking it to the high school, and we're going to try to get the younger generation to partake in it.
Yeah, good.
I've always been an advocate to take it to the elementary school because it's their generation and beyond, to get them to say, what do I want? Or just to see what it is.
When you have children that age, they're uninhibited, right? And
are.
They'll blurt out anything, and that's great.
Yeah, they have that creative imagination. So I'm happy to see the staff is really taking that step with getting out there and hitting the streets for us. So I'll send a bunch of people your way.
We actually had some younger participants come up to our booth at the car show and draw some pictures of things they loved about Atascadero. So
cool.
Good.
Great time.
We pulled up to City Hall the other day, and the water fountain was not on, and Abigail goes, it doesn't have water. I said, would you like to talk to someone about that? She goes, I do. I want to talk to someone about the water. They're probably cleaning it, but she was concerned that it wasn't, gushing water. That's her,
There's some point in our lives where, when you're with children, they're just so uninhibited, and they'll do things, and then they learn that you're not proper if you don't act that way anymore. I wish we wouldn't dial that down and let it. We all should be kind of crazy sometimes, like little kids.
Come to my house.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else for us, Phil, on any Barrel Creek updates or Del Rio?
I only can tell you about Barrel Creek, which is moving forward. And I will tell you one more thing before she does that. We will be going to the city council to, again, further talk about objective design standards and get a little closer on that before we actually bring a set of objective design standards through a review process. So that's happening September 27th. We'll have that discussion again, which is, ripe for discussion given the project we just looked at, and really apply to those things. So keep that in mind when that comes across our way.
September 13th at City Council.
27.
No, what's happening on September 13th?
Nothing you should be aware of. No, I'm kidding. So being mean.
We haven't even seen the agenda for it, Dennis.
That's on the 13th. The reason I said that, Dennis, is because that's the accessory dwelling units and
I
SB9
know.
is going to be
And
going.
I was told I could,
okay.
I was told I could participate in that meeting. And that's why I want to make sure it is on the 13th. People are asking me.
Yeah, I need to find out as to what level you can participate, I guess, if you're not on the council. Yeah, I need to find out from my legal staff how you can play a part in that. We
3
definitely
minutes
want
at least.
you to play a part. So let me
Yeah.
find
I
out.
have lots of ears and I can give
Yeah.
lots of information. out.
And also, I don't think we got together since we received some written comments. We need to do that too.
Okay, well, I'm available
Yeah.
anytime.
Okay.
Yeah, and question with regard to does that include the stock plans for the ADUs, or is this is more ordinance and fees and that kind of thing?
I'm sorry, what was that question?
Does the agenda, well, the council discussion on the 13th of September regarding ADUs and SB9 include the stock plans?
No. The stock plans are
Where is
already
it?
basically done. They're actually in a plan check review process right now. We'll release those and show you that as soon as those are ready, along with all the sort of brochures that we have coming out with that. This, what's coming to council is going to be purely the state policy in incorporation into our codes. So it'll be the accessory dwelling unit policies that the city will be adopting, and it'll be the Senate Bill 9 stuff that we'll be adopting.
Okay, and what's the approximate timing for the ADU stock plans?
Those should actually be completed and done by October, I think. Right now, they're in a plan review with us and some of the other communities. I think we're just about finalizing our comments on those construction plan details. There'll be some corrections to be made, and then we'll get a final set of those along with some brochures. And so they're almost done. They're almost done. They're real close.
Okay,
So we're excited about that.
Oh yeah, I am already promoting them. I was promoting that in KSBY in an interview yesterday because as we're looking at the factors that hypercharge homelessness in our community, the very tightness of the low end of the housing market is a key issue. And so basically, your homeless person who's currently homeless is probably 20th in line for trying to get any apartment that they try to apply for. And it's really hard for them to find a way to be competitive when so many people are desperate for lower cost housing.
It's very, very true. And I was speaking with Wendy Lewis today from Echo, as we've had a couple of workshops this week on that very topic about the relationship between housing and homelessness and what we can do from a city's perspective. And she also mentioned that one of the bigger topics right now is the conversion of a lot of these little rental spaces to Airbnb. And some communities are taking action on that. So it's interesting.
Yeah, that's a question I've raised at council a number of times. And I do think, and the general guidance was we could probably manage to wait until we are dealing with this in the general plan update, but it definitely needs to be addressed because you're seeing this. You have whole swaths of Paso Robles that no longer have residents, they just have Airbnbs. And it changes the whole character of the community.
Yeah, it's got other neighborhood impacts besides the availability of housing. It's got other things that happen. Yeah.
Right. So that it's a complex play. But when people build ADUs and use them for long-term rentals as opposed to Airbnbs, that adds capacity at these lower end of the market and makes it easier. Irrespective of whether you are employing, whether you're renting to, somebody's adult child who's looking for their own place, and or somebody who's going to be working at Echo or 40 Prado or County Behavioral Health or the school district. Every time you add capacity, you take a little bit of the pressure off of that end of the market, and at some level. That capacity helps reduce the number of people who end up becoming homeless. because so many people become homeless because they just can't find something.
Yeah.
You know, in a short period of time, and their situation changes, they lose their housing and they can't find anything.
We have a second home on our property, and we have found out over the years, we let people who need it use it. We have found out that tax-wise, it's bad for us to have a high rent on it. And so the person who lives in it now actually raised her rent on us because we were charging $300 a month, and she raised it to $500, and we were surprised. But it's not always good tax-wise for you to rent things out.
And I did want to end about our ADU stock plans, Susan and everybody else who's talking to people in the community. Right now, we sort of have a little preview. So we have floor plans and elevations available that are, you know, roughly what they're going to be. We don't have the full construction documents set yet, but we do have floor plans and elevations available that we are giving out to anybody who's interested to see if it will work on their property. So if anybody is interested, please have them reach out, and we're happy to get that information to them.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then Barrow Creek was resubmitted. They've gone through review. We have a couple more things we're asking some information from them, but we're pretty much at the stage where we're formulating some conditions and doing some environmental work, and then we'll bring that forward to Planning Commission, hopefully in the next couple of months.
Okay.
Okay.
Looks like our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, September 15th. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make that meeting, so I may have Susan step in if she's available. I won't know until last minute, so as we get closer to that, I'll kind of keep everybody updated.
As long as it doesn't go past about 6:30.
Yeah.
I've got a speaking commitment that night, and it would be problematic if I
don't
if
think
it goes
staff
super long.
wants to go past 5:30. But I will let you know when we get there. And then anybody else have anything to add?
Question. I had one more question for staff. What's in the pipeline with regard to anybody doing senior living type of facilities? I know that at one point the Hartsfeld or whatever it is down there by Caddy Corner from the front lawn of Ash in that area, that they were looking to do a senior housing out front in the senior community in the rear. I wanted to see if
it changed a little bit. Now I think it's a general apartment building or condominium that's being proposed, and I think they took away the senior only status. Isn't that right, Kelly, on that one?
Yeah, that's correct.
And then I don't know of any other senior specific. I don't think that are on the table.
The rumor I heard about Tasco Christian Home is that it's going to be converted into senior living.
Yeah, and we've heard some interest just with some developers coming in that might be something that they want to look at for some housing development. We've also heard some interest in some low-level assisted living for the Dove Creek commercial site.
Mm-hmm. That would be a good addition to the community. Okay, thank you.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Bye.